And also want to thank our gracious host and sponsor, Lucia, the restaurant. Larry, who started a tab up to a certain amount. Yeah, America's Future. Coming up big time. They had an event in New York City.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, they had an event in New York City. We organized in New York City a couple weeks ago, and that was really amazing. We had thousands of people view us online on Epic Times, and we had a packed house, sold out.
That happens again today.
Yeah, Borderman, my organization as well, and RJ Jewelry, my family's shop in Broad Street, doing a lot with us as well. So before we begin, I would like to introduce my good friend, Ronnie Figueroa, who is a crypto nomad. And what he's going to do first is that he's going to basically read everybody on the list. You're going to stand up, wave, say hi to everybody so everybody knows who you are. So after the event, you guys can network further. And after that, he's going to just basically call the program, like the events. We have a schedule. We have 2 panels, a keynote speaker, and then a special announcement from Boston New Technology. That's to do with New York, Rhode Island, and maybe even Philadelphia. All right, Ronnie, ready?
Yeah. How's it going, everyone? My name is Ronnie. My name is Ronnie, crypto nomad and a master of ceremony. I want to introduce Sue Lee.
Lee, stand up and wave.
Vice President of Business Development, Rhode Island Commerce Corporations. Next person is Oz Sultan, former speaker at Dubai Blockchain Forum, founder of Sultan Interactives, and a global crypto and blockchain advisor and consultant. Now, the next person up is Representative Dave Place.
Yeah, Dave.
Oh.
Dave is a Rhode Island House Minority Whip, and Kira.
Right here.
There we go.
Wow.
Founder of Blockchain Association, and Nick.
Nick and James.
Nick. Oh.
Nick Murray.
Yeah. Nick Berry and Mohammed Assad.
Hassan? He's not here yet.
No, he's not
He'll
here.
be here.
Well, on to the next person. Sam Nathan. Round of applause. He's the Boston Blockchain Associate. Yeah. So you got AJ.
Yeah.
Next up is Bradley
Adams?
Adams. No,
He's not here yet.
not here yet.
On the line.
And obviously Larry. That's everybody here. Well, actually, the next person here is Jude. Jude Sunfun. Huh? He's the marketing professional in New York City.
All the way down.
All the way down.
Oh, yeah.
You got Jason.
All the way up.
You got Jason, which is the CEO and founder of.
Oh, yeah.
Is he here?
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. You got James and Nick, obviously. You got James Gannon and Nick Hayes, Digital Assets Investment Group.
Let's stand up and
Let's stand up to wave
where we are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you got Brian, wealthy manager and venture.
Not here.
No, not here. No.
Not yet.
Who else? You got Kate.
Yeah, Kay.
And last but not least, Jay.
Yeah, Jay.
He was an MD for Canada at Brown University. We'll talk later.
I think that's it.
Yep. And for the first panel?
For the first part.
No Arnell Millhouse?
Oh, yes. Arnell Millhouse, sorry. Silicon TEDx Talk, Silicon Road. RHODE.
Science Institute, Brown University Entrepreneur Residence.
Woo! Good. So first, huh? Was that me?
No, I said, what about me?
Exactly.
Alex Black,
Yeah.
head fund private equity, New York City. So first up, we're gonna have CEO Lee come up and say some few words representing the state of Rhode Island.
I'm gonna stand right here, if that's all right.
You sit over here.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to stand over there with some of my Rhode Island rock stars, Kayla and Arnell. But thanks everyone. Welcome to Rhode Island. I know there's a lot of other states here. So as we had established just earlier, that Rhode Island is right in between Philadelphia and New York folks and folks coming here from Maine. So if we all want to meet up more regularly, we have a couple restaurants to try out all the way down that Old Delphi. Be a good idea, right, Dave? Yep. So welcome to Rhode Island. This is a fill in the blank here. Rhode Island is in the middle of a $4.08 trillion economic corridor, all on its own. That would be the 5th largest GDP output in the world. So here's where it's at, right? Wow. If you are in Rhode Island and you're shipping, you're doing e-commerce, your one-day ground array from 60 million people. One-day ground shipping from $60 million. So 60 million people, households, not people. So if you are doing e-commerce, this is a good place to do distribution. Folks like Amazon know that. They're the regional Amazon 4 million square foot warehouse going into Johnson. So Quonset is the USA's 6th best industrial park. That's in Rhode Island, the only one in New England. And we have the 2nd highest density of college students. So we talked earlier about the density of really great talent here in New England. Let's celebrate that. And you didn't hear it here, but we are going to be announced as the best kept secret in 2023 by Brand USA. This is live? Is that? Oh, I should have said that.
This is being live streamed.
I should have said that. I'm going to get in trouble. Good trouble, though. The state is consistently on the top of Moody's back to normal index. So why are we here, right? So we're a small state, which means we are a great place to innovate, which means some of you, if you're in financial industry, are thinking, well, what about this regulatory sandbox? Well, we reviewed regulation. We don't need to declare it specifically. We have a great regulatory sandbox in Rhode Island. I am in business development, so I am the business development person for design, engineering, and technology. I have a mostly private background, private industry background. So I've been on the other side. And I'm here to tell you I'm your private secret inside scoop. So if you want to do business in Rhode Island, come to Rhode Island. Please don't hesitate to give me a shout. I was born in a small European country, learned my English in Canada. Excuse any mistakes, but I love Rhode Island. It's the ocean state. It's the best place to be in New England. Some of you may agree. Agree. We make it work for us. So case in point, it's around room to innovate, right? So our current Secretary of Commerce, Liz Tanner, after starting hundreds of businesses as an attorney, came into Rhode Island Commerce because she wanted to make business, the state, a better place to do business. So that meant things like, okay, some of you super boring know this. If you have to start a company, you have to get a letter of good standing. It used to take over 90 days. Now it takes, like, on average 20 days, and if you've got it in right the first time, it takes like 6 days. So that's an improvement. That makes it easier to do business here. But we know that, like, filling out forms sucks, and filling out forms multiple times and having to go in sucks even more. And so when we think about doing business and using technology, blockchain and the transparency that blockchain allows for is super key. So quite simply, when the secretary came to make Rhode Island a better place to do business, she looked at other states, and some of you have heard this spiel, by the way, so I'm a poor substitute here. She looked at other states would be basically in the same, having the same challenges as Rhode Island. We looked at other countries, and there are some other countries that have used blockchain, right? Namely, fill in the blank, Estonia. Yay! And so, of course, we want to do proof of concepts first. So we did a proof of concept with something super boring. Again, like the letter of good standing, super boring, but affects how we do things. We did it with CPAs first. So blockchain, proof of concept, CPAs. Now there's an RFP out. So the RFP is the Digital Transformation for Business Registration and Credentialing RFP. It's out. Just FYI, if you are applying, don't come up to me afterwards because you may become ineligible. So if nobody comes up to me afterwards, I'll take that as a good sign. I'm truly thankful for this opportunity. Thank you so much, Mike. Thanks to everyone who's come to Rhode Island to celebrate blockchain. I am so excited that this is going to be the ecosystem, the state, to have that credentialing, that digital ID. It's not only going to affect like doing business with government, gov tech, digital transformation, have that happen better. But I think it's also going to make a huge difference to commercial and startups that want to use that digital ID. So if you're a startup that like knows that they want to use a digital ID in the future and they want to experiment at a state level, Rhode Island is the place to do it. Again, thanks so much. Don't come up to me if you're going to apply for that RFP, and enjoy your night.
Yeah.
Is there a specific blockchain technology that the RFP is linked to it? And then what's the funding amount, or is there a range?
Please submit that question.
Online?
For me.
Okay, perfect.
Does it have to be blockchain?
I want to come up to you individually.
All right,
No.
So- Anyway, next up we have our first panel of the night, moderated by my good friend Good Some Fun.
Yeah, Jude.
Hey, howdy everybody.
And
All
the
right.
panelists are Kira Schaefer from New York Blockchain Association, Sam Nathan from Boston Blockchain Association, and Christopher Ferraro from the Rhode Island Blockchain Council.
Y'all gonna.
Oh, he's over there. He's hiding.
It says 3, there are 4. Okay.
Including you.
Including me.
Yeah, you can
I thought 4 were on the panel, and I was moderating the panel. Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Hope you learned something. I expect to learn something from this panel, and we're gonna have fun. So let's get it started. All right. I will start with Chris for our first question.
Yay.
Oh, yeah, so sorry. What are your, I mean, this is for everybody, anyone could jump in. What are your top favorite token projects and why?
So for me, my favorite project is Bitcoin. It's the oldest one. It started the whole cryptocurrency space, and it has a lot of features in it that other cryptocurrencies don't. So for example, the proof of work consensus mechanism is very unique and allows for a different type of system that other consensus mechanisms don't. That's the rest of them. I'm interested in the Cosmos ecosystem as well, and Ethereum as well. I view a lot of other technologies as less about cryptocurrency and more about just platforms to grow the technology in space. Bitcoin is, in my opinion, the only true actual cryptocurrency, whereas the others are more kind of like software where you can build stuff and grow development on it.
So Bitcoin is like the basis on which everything else is built upon, like the foundation of crypto.
It's the basis of currency,
Overall,
in my opinion.
your opinion.
We're getting there.
Getting there. Kira, what do you?
Oh my God. Coins, tokens, mine are Monera, Ethereum, Gala, just because of its presence within the metaverse. It's pretty much it. I'm not like fully fluent in the coins yet. I normally deal with more of the legislation. That's where my background comes from, and funding the organizations that develop the new rules and regulations for crypto, blockchain, et cetera, because it's booming so much.
So it's your role to stay ahead of the game.
To stay ahead and fund, and make sure, the FTX thing doesn't happen again.
That's the good thing. Sam, what about you?
So the risk of alienating every single one of our partners,
Nice. Do it. We want controversy. More YouTube views.
I actually don't have any favorite token projects. I don't really think in many ways tokens are necessary in when it comes to technology. I think there's a lot more potential of use of technology outside of tokens. So there are different projects that I can mention from a technology perspective that I support rather than a token perspective. But there is one project that, despite potentially, I think, having a setback in how they were dealing with the equity of their company from a venture capital perspective and not tying that to their governance token model, would be Helium.
Helium, okay.
And that's mainly because
Not like noble gas, but
no, it's an IoT network using long-range LoRaWAN technology, but they have successfully, I think, created an actual, supply and demand ecosystem and a token representative of that supply and demand ecosystem of the resources contained within that for functional use that balances the governance and/or security token with an actual payment and utility token. So they separated those two things and created a good ecosystem about balancing those two things against each other to have a system that I think is, from an economics system perspective, a good example.
is it one of those coins or systems that that's probably be able to use this to sell economically?
I wouldn't necessarily suggest invest in it, but it in terms of a something to use, it is a good system to use. Getting in earlier versus later won't really affect the utility, the barrier of entry to utility to the network, because they've done the tokenomics so well.
Okay. Wow. I mean, I've never heard about Helium before, but no, it's good to, like I said, I love this panel because I'm learning as we go. So the first question so far so good. All right. Sam, I'll start with you. What is your favorite use case for blockchain outside of crypto?
Leave an answer for some of us.
No. Everybody's trying to get a shot.
I'm trying to think of
no
one.
passing. No passing.
I'm trying to think of one. So I have a special place in my heart for both digital identity and data privacy, and those two things being associated with each other. So that would be the one sort of use case area that I would just hold a special place in my heart. But ultimately, what I would caveat that with is blockchain technologies are composed of different elements.
Mm-hmm.
You have components that are used in one blockchain ecosystem that are completely different from either reimagined or ground up or from first principles in a completely different system. So a lot of the technologies that are being innovated in the blockchain ecosystem, in my opinion, are just as valuable outside, even potentially even more valuable outside of the blockchain use case context as within. And so I think that when you talk about like what use cases blockchain can apply to, I think you need to be more specific as to the mechanisms that blockchain systems enable, and whether or not blockchain as a system composed of components is actually what's valuable towards innovating in that use case, or whether it's just specific elements.
Okay, so blockchain as a whole would be more useful, or as certain elements like element. What you think? What element you think is like more useful to the public going forward? Like that the public can immediately use like today.
That can use today.
Like immediately, like boom.
Immediately.
Within the next 90 days. Not today, the next 90 days, 3 months.
Because it's extremely rudimentary, and the technology itself
trying to really develop that internationally. So it's like your passport, but more secure with fingerprint facial recognitions. That separate from health records, which is another big one. I work with a lot of organizations currently trying to get them funding to make it more prominent, because I mean, healthcare or health records, I should say, is a big animal to tackle, but it is doable, and that's the direction that we are headed in. But I mean, digital identity is something that we all struggle with internationally of how to keep secure. So that's the only little nugget I would add.
Okay.
Up to you.
So the first thing that comes to mind for me is title insurance. So when we buy houses, there's a large process that title companies need to go through in order to verify that previous owners have the legal right to the house. I think that probably right now the technology isn't fully there in terms of how to scale it, but the actual use case of putting the history of the history sales of houses on a public blockchain would be something very beneficial for the public, and would allow for the almost deletion of that whole industry as a whole.
So, everybody's talked about security or like some sort of like identity protection. Now, what do you see as the biggest vulnerability of blockchain going forward, and how can it be improved? Because I know, do you think it's the most secure method of protecting people's identities, protecting certain sensitive records? Those are give me a second synopsis. All right, what's the answer first?
So when people hear the word blockchain, they immediately think of Bitcoin. That is not true at all. We've actually had blockchains since the 70s and 80s, and there's actually very few real good use cases for the technology. In most cases, servers would be better off because they're when you add the ability of blockchain technology, that actually is when you add decentralization from having neutral happening on the network. That's where the blockchain technology comes into use. Outside of how do you protect
of mechanisms that theoretically what is it to get? For everyone to get it, and just from a New England perspective, not even a tri-state perspective, which is still Northeast. In Boston, it's easy for Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire to get it.
Okay.
And Rhode Island kind of beyond it, but Connecticut's sort of left out. Yeah, but if you do it in Providence,
right there.
it's hard. It's harder to get to Boston. It takes a lot longer to get to Boston,
Especially in the West.
especially in Western Connecticut. Like Western Connecticut is like Western Massachusetts. Pain in the ass. So, but if you do Providence now, it's a real pain in the ass for Maine and New Hampshire to get there. So
They try to be friendly.
yeah, sort of.
We have Amtrak and planes.
We do well, Amtrak, yes, but
Listen, I came up from Philly. It's doable. You know? So, no, I think in Northeast Gala would, I mean, be fun. Like you said, everybody likes to good time, party, free drinks. Why not? But I also think it brings recognition that the fact that there are so many blockchain associations being brought up and grouping together in the Northeast, saying like, hey, we're here, we exist, we're not bad, like the media, you know, persuades us, persuades it to be. I think that's a really good idea. And I think we should do more events such as this, but on a greater scheme to educate people more about it, to discuss the business aspect of it. I mean, it's a huge industry that, I mean, it's good money. It's good for the future when it's secure data you're working with. I mean, there's a healthy way to do this and advertise this. And I think the gala is, you know, one of the many ways to do it. That's what I would argue. And New York, duh. Hello, it's New York.
There we go.
So.
I like that answer. Great answer.
Just don't serve clam chowder. We'll get in a really complicated war situation with that.
Only one.
See? See?
One.
There's that one person.
Chris, you got an answer for that? Or you want to pass?
Yes, I'm gonna be biased and say support. I think Newport. So a lot of people don't know that Newport is actually the most traveled place in the summertime in America. So that's another thing great about Rhode Island. We're right in the middle of Boston, New York, Philadelphia, all the other states that don't matter. I'm just kidding.
This guy.
Is he done yet on the panel?
I mean, I don't know. We only got so much more time before we excommunicate.
Governance vote?
Not quite. Okay, I'm getting the 5 minute warning. So the last question. How do you intend to educate the population about the benefits of blockchain and how it could be mostly used in their everyday life? What would your strategy be in order to do that?
Well, I mean, I'll go here. I mean, events such as this that we're doing, I think, you know, using marketing and media now, we can do more Zoom calls, more Zoom events. They're a big thing. Even pop-up events, you know, one would even argue we could do one in Philadelphia because you bring a lot of the congressmen and senators up because it's easier to get up there. We need to educate them because they're the ones realistically making the guidelines and rules for this foreseeable future of all of the organizations that we come together and talk about currently now and daily, especially that it is so vehemently growing. You know, we have to educate them. I mean, God bless it. I love my father and he'll kill me for saying this, but he doesn't understand this at all. And I mean, I'm as well versed as I think I could possibly be without even studying it. Like these two folks, I mean, I feel ignorant on certain subjects or many when it comes to the in-depth, but I see the business aspect of it. And I think it's, you know, prevalent that we, you know, educate the multiple generations, the younger, the older, you know, our age, etc. So, I mean, Zoom events, galas, you know, pop-up events, just using the marketing that we have now. I mean, even little silly TikTok videos or Instagram videos, we can do it and it's easy to do it. We have to take the light of what the media has turned in and the negative glance and connotation and show the real good benefits and positivity of it. Like, we're trying to right now.
Exactly. I like it.
Yeah.
Here.
So one of the things that we will be doing is working with Sultan and RU. He taught a class at CUNY University.
Well, yeah, City University here. So Medgar Evers, which is the closest thing that we have to a historically black college in New York. It's not old enough. But we have a 400 level crypto course that I ran 2 tracks in. So one's a business track, so that basically we can get people involved in that side of it. The other's a coding track that we run them through crypto zombies and a bunch of other, projects. And the whole idea is that there's a systems integration at the end where there's a team project and they actually have to execute something. And the goal is, trying to make sure that we can get the right types of education in place, but also making sure that we don't leave anyone, off the table.
Yeah. And then in addition to that, just explaining the difference between what the technology is and what it isn't. So meetups like this, we will be holding monthly meetups going forward. We have specific speakers, and I'll get into that later. But it is very important, the education aspect of it.
Sam, round us off.
I think the most important thing that everyone needs to know about blockchain is it is truly about digitalization. So everything that should be done with blockchain needs to be from first principles thought of in a digital first way, in terms of processes, in terms of information, in terms of how it's interacted with existing technologies and with individual, people, entities, organizations, etc. And so as soon as you understand that that's really the transformation that has to take place, it's not necessarily everything becomes blockchain, but everything has to become digital first in terms of how it's constructed, then you can kind of start to understand what all information being referenceable in a programmatic way, which is the real power of decentralized technologies and this transformation to digital first, what the implications of that are on business and on everything that you interact with as an individual in society.
All right. I think with that, I want to thank my panelists for their contribution. I've learned a lot from it. I hope everybody here learned a lot. And we'll be here. I'm sure these guys will be here to answer any more of your questions that you have. I want to thank Mike again and this great restaurant Lucia for hosting us. And
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Curious, small European country.
How was your food?
How small? How are you? Yeah, look like our burrito or
All right, everybody. Next up is panel topic on Rhode Island cryptocurrency, moderated by James Gannon. Speakers are Larry Gilheeney, Regional Northeast Director for America's Future.
That's me, folks.
Nick,
Yeah, bring it.
Nick Murray, Director of Big Policy Institute.
This guy right here. Come on.
Alex Black was a Wall Street private equity hedge fund professional.
Lovely.
And Jason Krause.
Jason.
Hi, everybody. My name is James Gannon. I'm a graduate of the University of Rhode Island 2020. My business partner, Nick, and I, Nick is he's over there right now, but we have experience co-managing a digital asset hedge fund out of Rhode Island. And we're currently, we also have another project in the works, but thankful for everyone who came out tonight. It's great to be here. I'll just kick it off. So thank you, everyone. I hadn't phrased any of these questions in particular to any unique individual, but I'm just going to throw them out there. Feel free to fire away. So the topic here tonight is future use cases for cryptocurrency in Rhode Island and New England. So Rhode Island, New York, Mass, and Maine. So number one, what specific industries or sectors in Rhode Island and New England do you see as having the most potential for growth and adoption of cryptocurrency?
So one that I've been thinking about a lot, just coming from Maine and all of the New England states, we're on the same power grid, right? So we all deal with the same pressures for energy prices, and thinking a lot about this, and I think there's some use case there for not only on the kind of carbon credit trading system that we all kind of have to deal with the regional greenhouse gas initiative, which I think unnecessarily raises energy prices for all of us, and I'm sure that hinders the growth of manufacturing in this area. But I think at the base level, the contracts for generation, that we can distribute generation in such a way where consumers can directly contract with generators for energy. We have that in Maine, but we just had a report saying that consumer choice was bad for consumers. And I think it's incumbent on this group that champions cryptocurrency to talk about the power of freedom and the power of consumer choice and frankly capitalism. This is the engine that allows people to express their desires and to provide value for the people. So I think energy prices are a huge thing. I mean, you can't run a crypto mine unless the energy is worth it. It's worth the output. So I think that's got to be one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, no, I've seen, just to hop in, kind of piggyback off that, I've seen some interesting readings on people setting up shops, like you said, where energy is cheaper, and there's some interesting chats around how now you can essentially monetize and send energy at the speed of light, which is incredible. We haven't really been in an environment to do that. It's also natural byproducts like heat and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So thanks for that, Nick.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So I'll speak from my own sector. I work in the nonprofit sector. America's Future is a nonprofit. We build community, but there's all the organizations, charities that we're passionate about. And one of the challenges that we face in the nonprofit sector is donor intent, right? So people that we all give to organizations that we care about, but making sure that connects and smart contracts can make that happen in a way that's really special. So I think that's a place where there's a ton of growth potential for making sure that dollars end up with the people that really need them, and crypto ends up with the people that really need them. So there.
Yeah, no, great responses. The piece I'll add in is, I think probably the biggest room for growth is the areas that are slower to adapt technology. So that would be anything government related, healthcare related, legal tech related. There's a lot of amazing applications, especially in the security and data side, and those are some kind of fast growing sectors that traditionally slower to adopt technology, but now we're seeing it implemented.
Good answer, guys.
So I'm going to be like the Debbie Downer on this as a little bit of a crypto skeptic and say the biggest area of growth is going to be regulation. I would say kind of along with that, there's going to be growth in third-party groups that are consultants that are able to suss out the technology, whether transference of certain currencies or tokens is safe, and helping be that expert that exists in so many industries. We hire consultants for everything. Not fully built out in crypto yet. So, those are the two areas of growth, or at least what I think is necessary growth to fully, build an industry that can be trusted.
Right, yeah. No, thank you for that, Alex. Yeah, thank you, everybody. It's interesting to see, lots of people skeptical of regulation, but at the same time welcoming of it to make it easier to build and develop and see kind of what the future brings there. The second one would be, how are businesses and organizations in Rhode Island and New England currently using or experimenting with cryptocurrency, and what are some of the challenges that they are facing?
I've got a great example. My friend, his name's Eric Palmieri, he runs Palmieri Bakeries, right? And he's an artist, right? So he's got this family business that he's worked in all his life. And so he created, he would take pizzas and he would start these really crude things, like put a lot of olives here and a lot of pepperoni here, and he'd come up with, the first one he ever did was the Patriot symbol, right? So this is his art. And he's become really, really intense with this pizza art, that he's created this whole great marketing industry for his personal business around that. And he's using the blockchain to sell that art, like trading cards, to make that happen. It's a really cool example of a family business taking off, and it's just really incredible.
Larry, sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
Do you know which chain that is, or what type of technologies they're using?
It's an NFT of some kind, but
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure what
Okay,
technology
gotcha.
he's using exactly, but there's a coin too that he's created around
Gotcha.
it. So cool. Yep.
Thank you.
So I just chime in again, being on the cautionary side, there are quite a few companies, and it's becoming more and more, that are speculating with their cash balance in crypto. And there needs to be the understanding of maybe only a small portion of their cash balance should be used for speculative investments, because it's the same as any other type of investment. There's more stabilization in the dollar than there is in any of the others. So It's an area that affects businesses. It's a choice that businesses are making. They can make a ton of money off of it, or they may lose a lot and potentially lose the business.
Yeah, I think kind of going off of that, one area is businesses, like the relationship with banks. So, a lot of businesses that most businesses need to have some cash in the bank, and if they're taking in crypto, kind of managing that relationship with what you can bring in, what you can, bank with and pay out your vendors with. And there's some companies kind of working on that process to like simplify the organization between everybody. But, right now it's still a challenge for a lot of companies.
I can't say we have many use cases in Maine. We have a Maine BTC, which is a Bitcoin ATM company, and then we have Luxolo Financial, which is an investing company. It's pretty early days up north right now.
Yes. How long would you say has that been around for?
Maine Bitcoin LLC, I think they have about 24 ATMs, so they've been out there for a while. Luxolo is very new, probably like 4, 5, 6 years old.
Yeah.
But those are the only companies, to my knowledge, that are principally organized around crypto, and it's mostly Bitcoin.
Gotcha.
For obvious reasons, I just mentioned earlier. It's the foundation.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else on this topic? All right. Well, I'll move on. So this is the juicy one. How do you see the regulatory environment for cryptocurrency evolving in Rhode Island and New England in the next 5 to 10 years? So Alex, to touch on your point, the topic of possible proof of reserves, taxation, etc.
So proof of reserves, I think, is probably one of the most important points. A lot of people, when you think about investments in general, which it is an investment because it's not gold backed like a typical currency. It fluctuates like investments in general, but is not treated like one. So it meets the regulations. It's not FDIC backed. There's no getting something back that you lose, even due to fraud. Like it's, you're gonna have to sue, and you're probably not gonna get the money back, like with FTX and unfortunately, like what's going on with Genesis and Gemini right now. So, you've got this hurdle to have it treated like an investment, and then you have another hurdle where all these groups kind of have to scramble potentially to become compliant with regulations. There are actually in existence current funds that are already SEC registered and doing things a certain way because they're run by former investment management professionals. So, there's a lot of the market that's going to be scrambling, and then a certain amount of the market that's just going to be fine. But not having reserves is kind of ridiculous. It was increased after the financial crisis, and there was a reason for it. So to think that just because you've got a new version of a currency that you're not required to have a certain amount of reserves is a conundrum.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that, Alex.
Cool. Yeah, I can go off of that. So I actually, like a previous startup I co-founded was in like the crypto analytics space, and it was about probably 2016 timeline. We like kicked off a meetup, and 100 people came out to the first event because everybody was like looking to do ICOs at that time, and they were looking to create their own cryptocurrency. This is in Massachusetts, and then like 6 months later, they started cracking down and saying these aren't utility tokens, they're security tokens, and a lot of the companies that were coming out ended up getting shut down, and now there's kind of this newer model the last few years of like you're either going to be a security or you're going to be something that's purely used and not sold in that kind of same sale model that was originally used in like 2016, 2017. So I think, to Alex's point, like the regulation, more clarity around the regulations of help kind of where the next step of the crypto and blockchain process is going?
Yeah, it's difficult to say what the General Assembly is going to do. We have a slow-moving process. We have a lot of conservative Democrats that probably are a little bit older, really don't understand the technology behind it. There's some great representatives, one's in the room, that's introducing really good legislation, really smart stuff that's going to make a difference. But I want to say that we already have the state to handle this, right? So instead of adding more regulations, instead of doing more, we have the court system. That's we have a great police system here in Rhode Island. These are the things that we need to prevent fraud, prevent misdeeds. These things are already in place, and I have faith that if we just focus on the things that we already have, there really won't be bad things that'll happen from this. So we have the court system, and we have the police already. So that light touch, I stole that from Nick earlier, but I'm sure he's going to say the same thing in a minute. But yeah, free markets tend to work, and they produce good things. So keep the market free and provide some rule of law, and let's make that happen.
Yeah, I'd absolutely echo that. I think financial regulation on the federal level is a mess. The fact that you have to fit into one of two boxes, and the fact that this is just a new dynamic industry that at some point regulation doesn't understand yet. And so if you're constricting these boxes around what's already there, you're not making room for the things that are new. And so I would like to see, like Chris, I believe, mentioned the third party on titles, on home titles, some having some third party registration or third party certifications. I mean, we have Underwriters Limited for products, consumer products that test and validate consumer products. We could have things like that validated on the blockchain. And I think more consumer knowledge and more consumer choice can take the place of overbearing government regulation. One thing that I've heard about that's happened here in Rhode Island and places like Utah, these financial sandboxes, these regulatory sandboxes. I'm generally favorable to them, but the thing to me that's a blind spot on those is the fact that you need a friendly regulator. If you don't have a friendly regulator at your state office managing that sandbox, you're kind of shit out of luck, because if you have an antagonistic regulator, they're going to block you at every turn, like we have in Maine. So if we put a financial sandbox in Maine, we'd still have to change out the regulator to be someone favorable. So it really comes down to the fact that if the legislators write the law tight enough so that the regulators can't go and expand their power based on whatever the law has given them and make law via regulation, then it leaves more space for the private sector and the people who actually have skin in the game to act. If government is taking our place, then people have to take risks, and government can't take risks.
Just to be clear, not suggesting completely new overbearing powers, just suggesting that because something is new and for whatever reason hasn't been considered an investment yet, it's more around not necessarily new regulations, but around needing clarification regulations that encompasses a new area of investment. Because if every other area of investment is subject to law, it needs to be equal opportunity, and then you can go ahead and lobby and edit that, because I agree that there's plenty of overbearing that I have experienced, but none hasn't exactly worked out.
My worry is that we take the existing book of regulations and then just mirror it over the next thing, and then we don't make any progress. So that's my worry, is that we'll use the same gummed up book to regulate the new thing. And so if we're using the old model, we're gonna fail in the new model. So
and don't consumers already know the risks with this? This is new technology. Everybody that's investing their money in this has an idea that, hey, this might be a risk, there's dangers in this, and that's part of why they're expecting the high returns. They're taking that risk to happen.
A lot of them do not realize when they use certain platforms that they are actually similar to a bank, putting their entire principal at risk. And it is not clear, and that's why there are these class action lawsuits happening. So that's where it's, it is actually the, consumer side of the sector leading where regulation should be, because there's a lot of fraud. So, we could also use as an opportunity to lobby for, hey, we need something much more adaptive in the regulatory space, because things are constantly going to be changing. So how about using it as an opportunity to change the current playbook and not giving the opportunity to just have copy paste of the current playbook.
Yeah, you mentioned FDIC, to have some kind of backing, and I think the private sector can provide that sort of thing. We used to have poverty insurance before Social Security kind of crowded out the personal retirement savings space. So I think having some other insurance mechanisms to protect people and not just relying on whatever government system is there is going to help us in the long run.
Thank you for that, everybody. Yeah, Nick, Gary, Jason, Alex, it was a great conversation there. We might get the boot here. Mike, is there a time check? About 1 minute, 2 minutes? All right, well, I'll phrase this. I had a couple questions on people's views on the future of DeFi and tokenization of assets, but I'll hop to, how do you see the use of cryptocurrency and blockchain impacting the broader economy in Rhode Island and New England?
Yeah, there's so many poor people in the world here in Rhode Island. We have a struggling economy, and there's lots of people that are unbanked because of the way the banking system is set up. There's too much risk, and I think blockchain has a real social justice component. This idea of freedom for everybody, and that freedom to bank on it in a special way. I think that's going to unlock the potential of so many people, and I think that's the biggest change that's going to come.
I personally think that the biggest potential is reduction of fraud and the use of a lot of state money, whether it comes to unemployment, social security, any of those things, because when you are able to fully secure the identity of a person so that it cannot be misused, it's honestly, a lot of people aren't aware of the astronomical numbers that are wasted in fraudulent claims. And that is a huge area that is also going to be either lower taxes or more reinvestment in the local economies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's already happening in supply chains. I mentioned the energy markets. I think that's something to look for. And then if we can get blockchain implemented in government forms and to ensure benefit fraud isn't happening, I mean, that would be revolutionary. So
I'll do an economic standpoint. Like cash, it incentivizes you to spend your money because inflation is going to go up, and then cryptocurrency incentivizes you to save it or keep it invested. So it's a different model that might also impact how we think about financial systems.
Awesome, great. All right, thank you, everybody. We're going to wrap it up from there. Just going to thank the panel one last time. Nick.
Thank you. Great help.
I have some additional questions and topics on here if anyone wants them. There's a couple copies, but yeah, thank you.
So the second to last speaker of the night is our keynote speaker, former speaker at the Dubai Blockchain Forum, global consultant for many companies, Australian companies, Chinese companies, and companies in the U.S. as well on blockchain and cryptocurrency policy regulation. Also has a lot of lobbying as well in different states. Sultan.
Hey guys. So I got a question. I had a deck for this, and I don't think we're going to be able to present this. So if you could go to LinkedIn and just find me a LinkedIn, it's Oz Dalton. I just posted the deck. I mean, I could throw it in my notebook, but it's literally going to be this big for a room this big. No one's going to be able to read this. So if you want, it's on LinkedIn. But one of the things I kind of wanted to go through was sort of the best practices, because we're talking about Island, we're talking about. Yeah, because we had it on the iPad, and they were talking projector, and I'm like, this is not going to work. Like, no one's going to be able to see this. So we're talking best practices for the state, and so I've worked with David Place previously over the course of a couple of years, and what we did was we were able to put together a couple different drafts of blockchain legislation for the state, which include a sandbox. And so what I think is going to be advanced inside of the next legislative session is that's potentially one bill, that's potentially a couple of bills that are coming forward. But the whole idea, hold on, just pull this up so I can just guide my comments. But what you're looking at here is that Rhode Island is kind of like setting the pace for creating a blockchain regime in the Northeast. And what that means is that you have a little bit of a perfect storm going What was talked about previously is that you've got within 60 miles of where we are sitting right now, you've got 70 different educational institutions, okay? And of these 70 different educational institutions, this affords a very rich depth of human capital. You also have access to a tremendous amount of land. You're sitting on one of the largest sonnet rings of dark fiber in the Northeast. So we've got sub bases just south of here. But what we have is an insane amount of bandwidth concentration right inside of this area. So if you start looking at this from the perspective of all the way up to Maine and going all the way down to Washington, D.C., inclusive maybe even all the way to the Burgh in Ohio, right, as kind of what is really this corridor, you've got a couple of things that we should be thinking about in terms of like how we can inculcate best practices inside of this. And I'm just going to go over a couple of things really quick. From paper, like what is it now? 13 years ago, roughly. 14. The birthday just came up. So I mean, from commerce, we've gone from Bitcoin to ICOs to IDOs to IEOs, and that the IEOs being the exchange focused raises now. But what you have is this has become high finance. We're talking $2 billion worth of daily transactions in just some of the exchanges, with an overall market cap of over $1 trillion, depending on which way Bitcoin's moving that day. And that's not including all of your alts. That's not including your metaverse tokens. That's not including everything else that's becoming a derivative inside of this. That's also not including the fact that we can take tokens and we can encapsulate those tokens inside of another smart contract and create a derivative asset and utilize that asset in a completely different way than it was ever intended. Okay, all of this is coming to the forefront right now. And then we've learned mixed reality, right? So I go back a while, like I was in The Economist in 2008, and we were launching conferences in Second Life. And forgive me, no one fucking got it back then. And there was like about 12 people there. And what happened about 3 months ago? The European Union went and spent half a $500,000 to say, hey, the European Union's open for business. Come to our metaverse. 6 people showed up. Okay? And so this is the same problem that we had over a decade ago is the same problem that we have now with these platforms. The technology is here. It's ready. It's like, come on, let's go. But like, look at Splinterlands. Look at some of these other platforms that are out there. Look at the fact that they're saying it's not daily active users. It's not monthly active users. It's smart contract interactions. So you had 1,000 fucking smart contract interactions in your last month, but you've got a $3 billion valuation. Something's a little bit upside down inside of this. But I go back to what like my buddy Robert Scoble talks about. By 2026, and think about where we are right now. We're kind of like midway in the timeline here. By 2026, we are going to see a rash move across the industry, across all industries of custom content creators being able, you could be sitting anywhere in the world. Your kid could be sitting anywhere in the world. Your nephew could be sitting anywhere in the world. Your niece, whatever. Your non-binary, relation. But they could be creating things that people can be paying for on a variegated number of platforms that are out there with up to 1,000 number of cryptocurrencies that are utilizable inside of each one of these platforms. And then consider where we've gone from with NFTs. Right. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, there's no way you guys are reading that. So it is on my LinkedIn if you want to go and read it. And please use this as a template. If you have questions, I'm very easily reachable. But Bored Apes, the Honeys project. You guys remember that, which went completely sideways when they were ganked inside of their Discord and people started putting N-words all over the place. And then that resulted in the Honeys project being sold. Okay. So what you're having is you have these large scale asset NFTs that are out there that were kind of buoying the market. Then you have these secondary ones that have come up and they're kind of like carrying the market. But this stuff isn't even like started yet. SFTs, right? The semi-fungible tokens, where you created an NFT, right? But that smart contract's written so that you can inherit his blockchain's NFTs. And David has a bunch of ones that they're issuing for the state. Right, and so all of these can be encapsulated inside of the smart contract based upon the reference points that you have to all these other contracts that are out there for these other NFTs. So now what can happen you guys remember like Ultima Online and like some of the old worlds that were out there? What happened when you had a whole bunch of Ultima stuff? You had a sword, you had a shield. You had to go to eBay, and you had to go online in eBay and sell this stuff. What the SFTs allow is whatever he's just created, whether it is a game avatar, whether it's a character, whether it's just a sack of holding, right? D&D style. You put a whole bunch of crap in there, and now I can sell it as one singular bundled asset. Okay? This is very powerful. This is where the entirety of the market is going inside of the next 36 months. And it's going to go from NFTs to SFTs to inheritable classes to tying all this stuff together and then taking tech speak and tech jargon and making it at least a little bit more digestible for the average consumer that's out there. Because right now, this is voodoo magic for most people. You know, and you start telling people like you have to go and get a wallet. Well, no, you have to get a different wallet for that. No, I'm not paying you that. I need you to get this wallet. No, you need to go on that exchange and you need to buy that token there and you need to convert it to, no, you have to go to Uniswap. No. I need you see where I'm going with this? It is not idiot proof. It is not simple. All right. And that gets to the next step. So Rhode Island. Well, by the way, well done. Great job with the CFA certificates on Ledger, okay? But consider the fact that California, as of 48 hours ago, is piloting your titles on chain, okay? Like think about the impacts of this stuff. Think about like digital license plates. Think about all of these digital assets Ben was talking about. Like we have to digitalize all of these things, but the regimes and the regulatory regimes and all of this has to catch up. And why I like Rhode Island and I like what you guys are doing here is honestly, you've at least got the basic frameworks in place and you're not dealing with what Caitlin Long is dealing with in Wyoming where the FDIC just keeps trying to punch her in the nose, you know, because they're just not happy with her crypto custody guidelines and how she's, and go on LinkedIn, it's like watching a soap opera. In like live or telenovela and live time. I mean, it's just like, oh, the FDIC, oh, my attorney, you know, and this is like an ongoing thing. And we used to say that 3 months of social media was a whole year. Okay, 3 weeks in crypto is a whole year because of everything that changes, not just from a state perspective, but from a federal perspective, and the fact that you've got 6 different regulatory bodies that are like, well, who wants to regulate this? You over there. OCC points at FinCEN, points at FINRA, points at the SEC, keeps pointing. Okay, and then the state bodies get involved. They're like, "Hi, we just got here. Where's the party? There's no beer left." So I ran for state senate in the state of New York on 2 main pretenses: repeal the bit license. Okay. Because I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. In New York State, we have this thing called the bit license. There was one guy, he got it shoved through his legislation in 2014. Now, if you're an exchange and you want to operate in the state of New York, you know what you have to do? You have to go and you have to apply, and the application fee is $250,000. Okay? But what they don't tell you is that I have to phrase this very carefully, that there's a lobbying organization that happens to be run by the same guy that pushed the bit license legislation through that looks for a reason to support you, which is typically fiduciary compensated in some manner and fashion. And the problem that we are having is that dude, you talk to Todd, okay, down in DC, we have 6 major exchanges. We're talking like multi-billion-dollar exchanges that will not play in the state because the state's like, could cost you $250,000, could cost you $1 million. Nobody has any idea. When will it be approved? 2 months, 8 months? No one knows, right? So how exactly is that kind of fairness? How is that allowing the market forces to do anything? And then on top of this was regulation simplification through the blockchain, just on-chain stuff. Because you can go through the business wizard. It's called the business wizard in Albany, and you can fill out all the forms. Okay, I think I got everything for opening my bodega, and then they'll come and they'll hit you with a fine, and they'll say that you need to fill out three more forms, and they might suspend your operations. And this is an ongoing challenge in the state So it was those two things. Plus, I wanted to retool a couple of like the the child care and child payment system on the blockchain. I want to put a lot of stuff on there. Why? Because there's transparency. But a lot of these people don't want radical transparency because that means all their little slush funds go bye-bye. But not Rhode Island. And so I wanted to extol the virtues of your Secretary of Commerce, Mr. McWhorter. Rhode Island wants to help your business innovate and thrive. This round of award recipients is proof of that innovative expansion is taking place right here in the Ocean State. There's awards that are coming out. They are trying to get engaged. You've got 70 colleges within striking distance of here. You have Sonnet rings. You have venture capital. You have all of these family offices that are right here. Okay, all of this stuff is here. It's just a matter of like the closing pieces I want to talk to you about, and this is what's in the deck. So 20 years ago, I was at Carnegie Mellon studying under Richard Florida, and we did this whole study about what contributes and creates sustainable cities. And then we also took all the data and ran it through a Cray, which was my idea, which took like for fucking ever. But what we came out with was that there are certain sustainable amenities, and there's 4 key areas. And this is in the deck. If you want to borrow this stuff, please reach out to me. I'm happy to help with. One is regulatory support. Okay. So interstate standards, meaning in between states, and Rhode Island can drive some of this. Regulatory sandboxes, right? CBDC standards, because we keep talking about all of this digital dollar and dollar replacement and some central bank currency, but it's just nothing but theoretical mumbo jumbo at this juncture. Like there's nothing that's really concrete. And then bank custody, okay? The Office of the Comptroller of Currency stated, and the state of Alaska, this was 2 years ago, that, and I'm going to wrap up early because you're all tired and burrito. But 2 years ago, that banks can custody crypto, okay? So how the hell are you supposed to trust, who was it the other day? Was it Wells Fargo, or someone lost a whole bunch of Zelle deposits? And it was all over TikTok. Was it Wells? Bank of America. Bank of America, sorry, Bank of America. Bank of America, who 2 years ago was canceling your business accounts for spending money on crypto, was now, I love this crypto guy. Who is he? Come here. It's you. I mean, that's their attitude. It's a very yo-yo-y attitude. So, we need safe bank custody to drive engagement. This is the first area. The second area is accessible human capital, and I will not harp on this enough. Like New York City, we've got plenty of startups, but they keep leaving. And they keep leaving because not only is the human capital not there, it is not at a fair price. Okay? If I were to get someone who's a 5 to 8 years worth of experience, database engineer, Mongo, SQL, a bunch of other stuff in New York, $250,000, okay, per year, plus bennies, plus everything else. Here, I get that same person for $125. Pittsburgh, where I grew up, I get that person for about 95, I think, ballpark. But the whole point is it's economies of scale. And this area right here has a tremendous economies of scale, and that helps build the economies. Accessible VC and crowd funds. So new LPs and educated venture capitalists will invest for exits and not yo-yo investments. And this is what we keep seeing with the goddamn metaverse. All right. How many of these companies, how many of do you understand that there's beyond the metaverse pieces, there's going to be 12,000 dead tokens by March. Okay. Dead. I mean, not only are the names dead, the tokens dead. Like, I work with quantum economics. We had two founders got into an argument, and we inherited the Riva token. Okay, do you understand? Like, we're sorting through the inheritance of a DAO that's 3 different corporations in 2 different countries that we now have to untangle with legal to figure out what we're doing with this before we can even fix it. And this is like the tip of the iceberg of what's out there. All right. And this is an ongoing thing. So, and also it's like, remember when you went to get your Twitter name, like a couple of years ago, and it was taken by some idiot. Well, half of these really nice tags that are like 3-digit, 4-digit are all taken. So what's your option to like go rehabilitate this or reissue? Like, we talked to these guys for launching the PYRE token. There's a PYR token. There's another PYRE token. So do you understand like how complicated this is going to be for anyone new coming to the market, or someone who's not on whatever their IDO platform is that's got a wallet connected to go and buy into this. Did I buy this one? Was it already issued? I don't know. Where do I get the information? This is going to be an ongoing issue, especially as big companies come in. And then just wrapping up, they need to hire more frontline folks and more principal LPs. They don't know. They're just not spending enough time understanding the market. It's the same thing that happened with social in 07 through 12. It's the same thing that happened with Andreessen Horowitz coming together after, God, I can't remember the name of the search engine that was sold, Lycos, that was sold out of Carnegie Mellon. And then the last thing is public-private partnerships, industry and trade collaborations with state and federal industry to commercialize university tech transfer office and state IP. If you had any idea how much IP this state is sitting on, okay, that could be turned into commercial technology, commercializable tools, and by the way, the Army will give you money for it. DARPA will give you money for it. InQtel will give you money for it. All of this stuff is like literally within 150 miles of here, okay? You've got completely secured military bases. You've got all of this stuff, and it's just literally connecting the dots. And so this is why I think Rhode Island is not just a strong regulatory regime, not just a great regulatory regime, but I think it has the opportunity to actually kind of start leading in the region, simply because most of our other states, including my home state of New York and where I grew up, Pennsylvania, outside of like nuclear powered mining, which I think is kind of cool, but that's mid-state, and that's also not sustainable. Outside of that kind of stuff, it's just, if these pieces don't come together in a sensible or logical fashion, then it doesn't proliferate. You don't start the industry engine. And if you look at what's going on in Silicon Valley, they're losing all the human capital, right? And they're losing some of the funding. So it's going to go elsewhere. This is a great location because your other options are like Boise, Central Ohio, maybe Louisiana, but they keep flooding. It's just the ocean state. So that's my 2 cents. That's my thoughts. The deck's online. I'm available if you guys want to talk to me. Hope you enjoyed the burritos.
Let's go. Thank you. So we have one more speaker, Jason Cobb, presenting Boston New Technology with an announcement to make.
Yeah, this will be quick. Yeah, appreciate everybody coming out. You guys put on a great event here. So I'm one of the co-organizers of the Boston New Technology Group. It was founded by Chris Ricana about 11 years ago and really started as a place for startup showcase events where you can come out, demo what you're working on, get feedback and connections in the startup community, workshop events, panels, and different speakers kind of sharing their expertise with the startup communities. Grew to 28,000 member network in the Boston area and about 50,000 nationally. And yeah, so we came in about a year ago to come in as a co-organizer, kind of reignited after the pandemic, get back to in-person events, and we have a weekly tech newsletter that goes out. And then kind of the new space we're moving into now is opening up chapters in different cities. So we're going to be working with Mike on the Rhode Island chapter and Alexandra on the New York chapter, and a couple others in Philadelphia, Austin, Texas, and Dallas, and some other regions as well. So yeah, excited to connect with everybody here, and looking forward to more events and partnering up with other groups throughout the rest of the year.
Well, the event is officially over, so feel free to stay around. Great restaurant, network. I'll also be here for how long? Much longer?
I'll be here for a while.
He'll be here for a while. So yeah, you guys have access to all the speakers, and also we're gonna have our monthly events. Chris, monthly event. You want to make an announcement? How are you gonna take people's contact information so they know what's going on?
Yeah. So
you want to sit over here?
So first off, thank you everybody for coming. Greatly appreciate it. We will be hosting monthly virtual events and in-person events.
We will have specific speakers every single month talking about different topics. The first person that's agreed to host has been Oz. He's going to be hosting an event on March 2nd. The next speaker who has agreed to talk is REU, the head of the U.S. Blockchain Coalition. And in May, we're looking to get Todd White, who has one of the largest PACs in America. He's very big in the space and getting politicians on both the Republican and Democratic side to get elected. So if anyone wants to join our group, please I'm going to have a spreadsheet that you can just put in your information, and we'll be reaching out to you with what's going on with updates and stuff like that. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, stupid or otherwise?
All right, let's get to networking, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.